In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast. We are the brave and the bold.
Jacob lived in a land where his father had stayed, the land of Canaan. And this is the account of Jacob's family line. Joseph, a young man of 17, was tending the flocks of his brothers, the sons of Bilhah, and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and he brought their father a bad report about them. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made an ornate robe for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him. They could not speak a kind word to him. And Joseph had a dream. And when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream that I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in a field where suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it." His brother said to him, "Do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us?" And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. Then he had another dream that he told to his brothers. "Listen," he said, "I had another dream, and this time the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me." And when he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him. "What is this dream that you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down on the ground before you?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. This was obviously Genesis 37.
The Abracast. Occult, history, conspiracy, and violence.
Twisting the knobs and adjusting the sliders on the lesser key of Solomon soundboard. Yakking and cracking from deep inside Quarantine Zone 3, reporting from the People's Republic of Pennsylvania. Long live our fearless leader, Governor Egghead, and greetings, comrades. I am John Towers, and this is the Abracast. So I don't know about you guys, but quarantine sex is getting weird here at Stigmata Studios. Okay, we got a good show, big show, good show here, terrific show, the best show here. Ready? Before we get going, I want to bring to your attention the Fellowcraft episode this month. Atlantis Part 2 is up on Patreon and Subscribestar. If you hit the website and go to the shop, t-shirts and other stuff, you're going to find we did some designs that are acceptable, in my opinion, to be used as masks. We're selling COVID-19 social distancing masks. One of them is the Disc of Solomon from the Lesser Key of Solomon. This is the graphic. It is to be held before the face of the exorcist to preserve him from the stinking sulfurous fumes and flaming breath of evil spirits. So I thought that was appropriate to put on a mask. You can also get it on a t-shirt. It's abercast.com store t-shirts and other stuff. The other one is the Pentagram of Solomon. This one was more of a t-shirt idea, but so you can get it on a t-shirt. So ideally you would have the pentagram t-shirt and then the Disc of Solomon mask. That would be like your ensemble for the evening. The pentagram is to preserve thee from danger and also to command spirits by. They're both pretty cool. They're pretty cool. You got to give it up. They're pretty cool. So last month we did an Easter sermon. It was a free Fellow Craft episode. You go to Patreon or Subscribestar to listen to it. You don't have to be a supporter on any of those platforms, but that's where you go to listen to them. And this month I'm playing around, probably going to be doing a Pentecost sermon over there. We're in the Pentecost now, and I found some fun stuff to talk about. So that's not up yet, but keep your eye out for it if you want. Speaking of Patreon or Subscribestar, it is Magician Sticker May. Anybody that joins on the $5 tier or the $10 tier will get a free magician sticker from the tarot cards I'm designing. They're cool. They're exclusive. You can't get them anywhere else. You can't get them anywhere else. This is it. And while you're at the t-shirt store, look around. There's some fun stuff there too. There's a Crowley's Magic Circle t-shirt, which is cool. You got the classic logo shirt out there. There's good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, so we're kind of in the last few. Jeez, I don't want to put a number on it because I'm going to fucking be wrong. We're on the last 3 or 4 episodes of Genesis, and then we're going to take a break for a little while on the Old Testament. But I'm anxious to get, I don't want to say I'm anxious to get it over with, but I'm anxious to feel the completist in me is anxious to get that feeling of getting that all the complete episodes of Genesis done. So with that being said, I featured books for this evening are the Bible, obviously, and Legends of the Jews, which we've been leaning on quite heavily here for a few, if not most, of these episodes. So with that being said, we're starting, well, we did start with the Bible, the cold open. That was Genesis 37, 1 through 11. But now we're going to jump to the Legends of the Jews. This is Joseph being cast into the pit. Once the brethren of Joseph led their father's flock to the pastures of Shechem, and they intended to take their ease and pleasure there. They stayed away a long time, and no tidings of them were heard. Jacob began to be anxious about the fate of his sons, and he feared that a war had broken out between them. So it's interesting to note here, I might have noted it last episode, that when Abraham got renamed, Abram got blessed and got turned into Abraham. When Jacob gets blessed and they rename him Israel, that's just kind of like a nickname. Like they still refer to him both ways. And I'm not quite sure why that is. I should have asked Dr. Price when he was on. Okay, back to it. He had broken out, the war had broken out between them, the people of Shechem. And he resolved to send Joseph to them and have them bring word again, whether it was all well with his brethren. And Jacob desired to know about the flocks, for it was a duty to concern oneself with the welfare of anything from which one derives profit. Although he knew that the hatred of his brethren might bring upon an unpleasant adventure. Yet Joseph, a fightful reverence, declared himself ready to go on this father's errand. Later, whenever Jacob remembered his dear son's willing spirit, the recollection stabbed him to the heart, and he would say to himself, "Thou didst know the hatred of thy brethren, and yet thou didst say, Here I am." Jacob dismissed Joseph with the injunction that he journey only by daylight, saying furthermore, "Go now, see whether it be well with thy brethren, and well with the flock, and send me word," an unconscious prophecy. He did not say that he expected to see Joseph again, but only to have word from him. Since the covenant of the pieces, God had resolved on account of Abraham's doubting question that Jacob and his family should go down to Egypt to dwell there. Anytime you see this going to Egypt business in these old texts, it's generally understood that that's the bad place. Like, it's the very bad place. It reminds me a lot of the hem of the pearl in one of our early Gnostic episodes. I talked about the hem of the pearl, where it's this allegory of this prince that leaves his home to go into the land of Egypt, and he gets there and he eats too much and he drinks too much and he cavorts around, I imagine, and he forgets where he comes from. It's this whole Gnostic allegory, but the whole point of the story is that he eventually gets like these mystical text messages from his family, and he's like, oh yeah, shit, man, I remember, I'm not supposed to be in Egypt. What the fuck am I doing here? Why am I eating this bullshit? And he's got to go to and he, instead of fighting a dragon or a serpent, he goes and he sings it a song, and it falls asleep, and he steals his pearl, and he's able to leave. It's also called the hem of the robe. Anyhow, it's a beautiful story, but this whole business about God sending God and Abraham sending Jacob to go to Egypt. Well, we all know what happens when they get there, right? Back to the book. The preference shown to Joseph by his father is the envy it aroused, leading finally to the state of Joseph and his establishment in Egypt, where but disguised means created by God. Instead of executing his counsel directly by carrying Jacob down to Egypt as a captive, Joseph reached Shechem, where he expected to find his brethren, and Shechem was always a place of ill omen for Jacob and his seed. Yeah, this is fun, this part here, because this is kind of a time jump. This is like a Tarantinoian non-linear narrative time jump, where we get to jump in time a little bit and see what other fucked up stuff happens to Jacob's lineage here at this spot. There, Dinah was dishonored. There, the 10 tribes of Israel rebelled against the house of David, while Rehoboam ruled in Jerusalem, and there Jeroboam was installed as king. Not finding his brethren in the herd in Shechem, Joseph continued his journey in direction of the next pasturing place, but not far from Shechem. But he lost his way in the wilderness. Here's another point of importance. Gabriel is one of the, 7 or 8 or 10 or 12, however you divide it up. Gabriel is one of the archangels. A lot of people also say Gabriel, he is one of the archangels. Some people would say Gabriel, she is one of the archangels. However, we know that after Genesis 6, angels don't have genders. But in my comic book universe, Gabriel appears as a female. So think about that. If you want to check out my version of Gabriel, you could sign into the mailing list. There's a couple Gabriel arts up there. Okay, Gabriel in human shape appeared before him and asked him, saying, What seekest thou? And he answered, I seek my brethren. Whereto the angel replied, Thy brethren have gone up to the divine qualities of love and mercy. Through a prophetic revelation, they learned that the Hivites were preparing to make war upon them, and therefore they departed hence to go to Dothan. And they had to leave this place for other reasons, too, I heard. While I was still standing behind the curtain that veils the divine throne, that this day the Egyptian bondage would begin, and thou wouldest be the first to be subject to it. Then Gabriel led Joseph to Dothan. And when his brethren saw him afar off, they conspired against him to slay him. Their first plan was to set dogs on him, sick him. Simon then spoke to Levi, and behold, the master of dreams cometh with a new dream, whose descendant Jeroboam will introduce the worship of Baal. Come now, therefore, and let us slay him, that may we see what will become of his dreams. But God spoke, yea, say, when shall we see what becomes of his dreams? And I say likewise, we shall see. And the future shall show whose word will stand, yours or mine. Simon and Gad set about slaying Joseph, and he fell upon his face and entreated him, have mercy with me, my brethren, have pity on the heart of my father Jacob, and lay not your hands upon me to spill innocent blood, for I have done no evil unto you. But if I have done evil unto you, then chastise me with chastisement. But your heart and your hands lay not upon me, for the sake of our father Jacob. And the words touched Zebulun, and he began to lament and weep. And wailing of Joseph rose up together with his brothers. And when Simon and Gad raised their hands against him to execute their evil design, Joseph took refuge behind Zebulun and supplicated his other brethren to have mercy upon him. And then Reuben, who makes the best sandwich, by the way, arose and said to his brethren, let us not slay him, but let us cast him into one of these dry pits, which our fathers dug without finding water. Whoa, that's a throwback, isn't it? They mentioned that a long ways back. Oh, I should probably track that down. That also brings to mind the World War Z, right? After the Tower of Babel, when God confused the language, which, hey, it's Pentecost, by the way. When God confuses the language, everybody splits. Instead of all staying where the Tower of Babel is, they all split up, and 9 kingdoms arise from the plains of Shinar. And the 4 or 5 or 6 of the cities of the plains of Shinar, they get sick of paying taxes to everybody else. It's like, it never goes away. It's fucking cyclical. It's like you buy the ticket, you get on the carousel. The course goes up and down. It also goes around. It's circular. Enjoy the ride. Anyhow, they get pissed off about taxes, and they start this whole war. And one of the things they do in this war, they're fighting these giants and shit. And one of the things they do is they trap these giants in these sulfur pits. So I wonder if that might be a reference even to going as far back as World War Z. Anyhow, you can find all the stuff I'm babbling about on the featured topic links at advertise.com. Just scroll down and find the Genesis. It's all right there. It's all fascinating. Also, if you want the World War Z stuff and the Tower of Babel stuff, you might also want to look at the Nimrod and Tammuz section. They have their own little section because it's so fast. It's such a fascinating story. All right, back to it. What was due to the providence of God? He had hindered the water from rising in them in order that Joseph's rescue might be accomplished, and the pits remained dry until Joseph was safe in the hands of the Ishmaelites. Reuben is like, I'm going to stop saying that. It just makes me hungry. Had several reasons for interceding on behalf of Joseph. Joseph knew where the sauerkraut and cream cheese and Swiss cheese and Thousand Island dressing was. He knew that he, as the oldest of the brethren, would be held responsible by their father if any evil befell him. Besides, Reuben was grateful to Joseph for having reckoned him among the 11 sons of Jacob and narrating his dream of the sun, the moon, and the stars. Since his disrespectful bearing towards Jacob, he had not thought himself worthy of being considered one of the sons. First, Reuben tried to restrain his brethren with a marble rye from the purpose and addressed them with words full of love and compassion. When he saw that neither words nor treatises would change their intentions, he begged them, saying, My brethren, at least hearken unto me in respect of this, that ye be not so wicked and cruel as to slay him. Lay no hand upon your brother, and shed no blood, but cast him into that pit that is in the wilderness, and let him perish thus. Then Reuben went away from his brethren, and he hid in the mountains, so that he might be able to hasten back in a favorable moment and draw Joseph forth from the pit and restore him to his father. And he hoped his reward would be a pardon for the transgression that he had committed against Jacob. His good intention was frustrated, and yet Reuben was rewarded by God. For God transmitted the recipe for the Reuben sandwich straight from the divine throne through the veil like a lightning bolt to Reuben, and he gives him recompense not only for his good deeds but for his good intentions as well, as he was the first of the brethren of Joseph to make an attempt to save him. So the city of Bezer and the tribe of Reuben was the first of the cities of refuge appointed to safeguard the life of the innocent that seek help and give him a hearty sandwich. Therefore God spoke to Reuben, and he says, As thou wast the first to endeavor to restore a child unto his father, so Hosea, one of thy descendants, shall be the first to endeavor and lead Israel back to his heavenly Father. The brethren accepted Reuben's proposition, and Simon seized Joseph and cast him into the pit, swarming with snakes and scorpions, besides which was another unused pit filled with offal. As though this were not enough torture, Simon bade his brethren to fling great stones at Joseph. In his later dealings with his brother Simon, Joseph showed all the forgiving charitableness of his nature. When Simon was held in durance in Egypt as a hostage, Joseph, so far from bearing a grudge, ordered crammed poultry to be set before him at all his meals. Again, this is that nonlinear time skip. Not satisfied with exposing Joseph to the snakes and the scorpions, his brethren had stripped him bare before they flung him into the pit. They took off this coat of many colors, his upper garment, his breeches, his shirt. However, the reptiles could do him no harm, and God heard his cry of distress and kept him hiding in the clefts and in the holes, and they could not come near him. From the depths of the pit, Joseph appealed to his brethren, saying, O my brethren, what have I done unto you? What is my transgression, and why are you not afraid before God on the account of your treatment of me? Am I not flesh of your flesh, bone of your bone? And Jacob, your father, is he also not my father? I'm sorry. I just got wound up in my brain as I was reading this because there's this clear connection with this. God, I'm going to have to revisit all this. There's this clear connection here with this bit of Joseph being stuck in this pit and getting rocks thrown at him and stuff. And I guess I'm kind of silly to not have seen it before, but there's this line that goes right to Cain and Abel. And in that case, it follows right through this whole wrong son, wrong blessing, wrong curse business that we've been talking about since the beginning. So if you're new to the show or you're just listening to this as a one-off or something, we've been tracing this idea through Genesis of this wrong son getting the wrong blessing or the wrong curse. If you would like to know more, you can sign into the mailing list on Advertise.com. There's a clicker in the show notes there if you want to sign into it. It'll give you access to all this extra stuff, graphics, drawings, whatever. Anyhow, there's the whole graphic on there about this extra bit about the wrong son, wrong blessing, wrong curse, which this ties right into. So, yeah, you know, I'm not afraid to say, like, after Jacob wrestles the angel, like, my interest in Genesis kind of wanes, but it looks like I should be paying more attention to this stuff. I'm going to have to go back to that graphic. I'm going to have to amend it now. So why do you act thus towards me? And how will you be able to lift up your countenance before Jacob, O Judah, Reuben, Simon, Levi, my brethren, deliver me, I pray you, from this dark place into which you have cast me. Though I committed a trespass against you, yet ye are children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who were compassionate with the orphan. They gave food to the hungry, and they clothed the naked. How then can ye withhold your pity from your own brother, your own flesh and bone? And though I sinned against you, yet you will hearken unto my petition for the sake of my father. Oh, that my father knew that my brethren are doing unto me, and that they spake unto me. To avoid hearing Joseph's weeping and cries of distress, they're like, Joseph, stop being a pussy. His brethren passed on from the pit and stood at a bow shot's distance. And only one among them that manifested pity was Zebulon. For 2 days and 2 nights no food passed between his lips on the account of the grief over the fate of Joseph, who had to spend 3 days and 3 nights in the 3 days and 3 nights in the pit before he was sold. During this period, Zebulon was charged by his brethren to keep watch at the pit. And he was chosen to stand guard because he took no part in the meals. Part of the time, Judah was also refrained from eating with the rest and took turns at watching because he feared Simon and Gad might jump down in the pit and put an end to Joseph's life. While Joseph was languishing thus, his brethren determined to kill him. They would finish their meal first, they said, and then they would fetch him forth and slay him. When they had done eating, they attempted to say grace, but Judah remonstrated them, and he said, we are about to take the life of a human being, and yet would bless God. That is not a blessing. That is condemning the Lord. And what profit is it we slay our own brother? Rather would the punishment of God descend upon us. I have good counsel to give you. Yonder passeth by the traveling company of the Ishmaelites on their way to Egypt. Come and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him. The Ishmaelites will take him with them upon their journeying, and he will be lost among the peoples of earth. And let us follow the customs of former days of Canaan too. The son of Ham was made a slave for his evil deeds. Well, was he? It's interesting. Go back and listen to that one. And so we will do with our brother Joseph. We're going to flip to Genesis here, 36. Judah said unto his brothers, what will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let us see to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. After all, he is our brother and our own flesh and blood. And when the Midianite merchants came by, his brother pulled Joseph out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took him to Egypt. And when Reuben returned to the cistern and saw that Joseph was not there, he tore his clothes, and he went back to his brothers and said, the boy isn't there. Where can I turn now? And they got Joseph's robe. This is the the robe of many colors. They slaughtered a goat and dipped the robe in blood, and they took the ornate robe back to their father and said, "We found this. Examine it to see whether it is your son's robe." You recognize it is his son's robe. "It is my son's robe," he says. "Some ferocious animal had devoured him. Joseph had surely been torn to pieces."
Are you the type of person who has to close and minimize windows before the boss can see? Are there things that you've seen that you dare not mention to the normies and pink boys you see shambling down the sidewalk? Have you taken one step too many down the rabbit hole? Well, fear not. You are always welcome on The Whole Rabbit, where we discuss things like chaos magic, Aleister Crowley, and the tarot. But that's not all. We decode the mysterious Illuminati symbolism in films like Midsummer, Joker, Dr. Sleep, and Eyes Wide Shut. On The Whole Rabbit, we even discuss occult manuals like The Kabbalion and Abramel and the Mage. Here's wherever you most enjoy listening to podcasts, like Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and pretty much everywhere else podcasts are available. So tune in to The Whole Rabbit every week and join the conversation. And remember, eat carrots, shoot lasers.
Learn more at abracast.com. Get bonus content by signing up for the mailing list. Get all that plus many exclusive episodes by supporting the show at patreon.com or subscribestar.com.
All right, I want to remind everybody about the Lesser Key of Solomon masks and t-shirts as we ditch this quarantine and are able to move back into society. You might want to have something stylish and functional in a ritual, ceremonial magic sense of the word. Atlantis Part 2 is available at Patreon and Subscribestar for a fellow craft episode. Keep your eye out for Pentecost Sermon and Magician Sticker May. Every Patreon supporter that we gain at the $5 tier or $10 tier, we get a free sticker of the Magician card of the tarot card deck that I'm supporting. By the way, speaking of all that stuff, raise your glasses and join me in thanking all my Patreon Subscribestar supporters. Thank you guys. Without you, none of this stuff could be possible. All right, so let's unpack it here. We're switching to legends. So we're going to talk about the Legends of the Jews by Ginsberg. This is it's not really his take. He collected a bunch of oral traditions and actually wrote them down. So this is the version that appears in Ginsberg's book, Legends of the Jews. And it's just called The Sale. It's like a blue light special. It's a many-colored light special over here. I thought that was clever. So while the brethren of Joseph were deliberating upon his fate, several Midianitish merchantmen passed nearby the pit where he lay, and they noticed that many birds were circling above it, whence they assumed that there must be water therein, and being thirsty, they made a halt in order to refresh themselves. Then they came close, and they heard Joseph screaming and wailing. They looked down into the pit, and they saw a youth of a beautiful figure and a comely appearance. What fucking story did I just wander into? They called unto him, saying, Who art thou? Who brought thee hither? And who cast thee into this pit in the wilderness? And they all joined together and dragged him up and took him along with them. And they continued on their journey, and they had to pass his brethren, who called out to the Midianites, Why have you done such a thing to steal our slave and carry him away with you? And we threw that lad into the pit because he was disobedient. Now then, return our slave to us. And the Midianites replied, what, this lad you say is your slave? He's your servant? More likely that you are all slaves unto him, for in beauty of form and pleasant look and fair appearance he excelleth you all. Why then will you speak lies unto us? We will not give ear unto your words, nor believe you. We found this lad in the wilderness in a pit, and we took him out, and we will carry him away with us on our journey. The sons of Jacob insisted, restore our slave to us, lest you meet your death at the edge of my sword. Unafraid, the Midianites drew their weapons, and amid war whoops, they prepared to enter into a combat with the sons of Jacob. Then Simon rose up, and with bared swords he sprang upon the Midianites, at the same time uttering a cry that made the earth reverberate. The Midianites fell down in great consternation and said, he said, I am Simon, the son of Hebrew Jacob, who destroyed the city of Shechem alone and unaided. And together with my brethren I destroyed the city of the Amorites, and God do so and more also. If it be true that all Midianites, your brethren, united with the Canaanite king to fight with me, cannot hold out against me, now restore the boy you took from us. Else I will give your flesh unto the fowls of the air and the beasts of the field. So Simon can talk some shit. I love it. The Midianites were greatly afraid of Simon, and terrified and abashed, they spake to the sons of Jacob with little courage. Said ye not that ye cast this lad into the pit because he was of a rebellious spirit? What now will you do with the insubordinate slave? Rather sell him to us. We are ready to pay any price you desire. This speech was part of the purpose of God. He had put it into the heart of the Midianites to insist upon possessing Jacob, that he might not remain with his brethren to be slain by them. The brethren assented, and Joseph was sold as a slave while they sat over their meal. God spake, saying, over a meal did ye sell your brother, and thus shall Anasaurus sell your descendants to Haman over a meal. And because this is that nonlinear Tarantinoian storytelling, and because ye have sold Joseph to be a slave, therefore shall ye say year after year, slaves were we unto Pharaoh in Egypt. The price paid for Joseph by the Midianites was 20 pieces of silver, shekels, as we've heard, enough for a pair of shoes for each of the brethren. Thus they sold the righteous for silver. And the needy for a pair of shoes. For so handsome a youth as Joseph, the sum paid was too low by far. So, I mean, they're kind of just saying, like, this guy's going to be a sex slave in some weird Midianite sex club or something. Like, they're all enamored with how good the boy, show me the boy. It reminds me of the Blues Brothers. Women, how much do you want for the women? So handsome a youth as Joseph, the sum paid was too low by far, but his appearance had been greatly changed by the horrible anguish that he had endured in the pit. For 3 days, what? With the snakes and the scorpions, he had lost his ruddy complexion, and he looked sallow and sickly. and the Midianites were justified paying a small sum for him. The merchantmen had come upon Joseph naked in the pit, for his brethren had stripped him of his clothes, so he might not appear before men in an unseemly condition. And God sent Gabriel down to him. And the angel, oh boy, what? The angel enlarged the amulet banging from Joseph's neck until it was a garment that covered him entirely. Joseph's brethren were looking after him as he departed with the Midianites. And when they saw him with the clothes upon him, they cried after him, "Give us his raiment. We sold him naked without clothes." His owners refused to yield to their demand, but they agreed to reimburse the brethren with 4 pairs of shoes. And Joseph kept the garment at the same in which he was arrayed when he arrived in Egypt, and he was sold to Potiphar, the same in which he was locked up in prison and appeared before Pharaoh, and the same he wore when he was ruler over Egypt. That sounds like a pretty heavy fucking metal spot to end the story, but we're going to keep going for a little bit more. As an atonement for the 20 pieces of silver taken by his brother in exchange for Joseph, God commanded that every firstborn son shall be redeemed by the priest of an equal amount, and also every Israelite must pay annually to the sanctuary as much as fell to each of the brethren as his share of the price. The brethren of Joseph bought shoes for the money, for they said, "We will not eat it, because it is the price of blood of our brother, but we will tread upon him, for that he spake that he would have dominion over us, and he will see what will become of his dreams." And for this reason the ordinance had been commanded that he who refuseth to raise up a name in Israel unto his brother that hath died without having a son shall have his shoe loosed from his foot, and his face shall be spat upon. Joseph's brethren refused to do aught and preserve his life, and therefore the Lord loosened their shoes from their feet. For when they went down to Egypt, the slaves of Joseph took their shoes off their feet as they entered into the gates, and they prostrated themselves before Joseph as before a Pharaoh, and as they lay prostrate, they were spat upon and put to shame before the Egyptians. The Midianites pursued their journey to Gilead, but they soon regretted the purchase they had made. They feared that Joseph had been stolen into the land of the Hebrews, although sold to them as a slave, as if his kinsmen should find him with them. Death would be inflicted upon them for the abduction of a free man. The high-handed manner of the sons of Jacob confirmed their suspicion that they might be capable of man theft. Their wicked deed would explain, too, why they had accepted so small a sum in exchange for Joseph. While discussing these points, they saw coming their way the traveling company of Ishmaelites they had observed earlier by the sons of Jacob, and they determined to dispose of Jacob to them. They might not lose the price they had paid, and might escape the danger at the same time of being made captives for the crime of kidnapping a man. And the Ishmaelites brought Joseph from the Midianites, and they paid the same price as the former owner had given for him. All right, so look here. There's a lot of stuff to still talk about, right? One of the things, I kind of mentioned already, is this correlation between this story of Cain and Abel with his rock throwing business, and how all these brothers fucking hated this guy. But there's a lot more to unpack. I kind of gave a hint when we were reading through, and they said that Joseph had been in the pit for 3 days and 3 nights. And I was like, And then he comes out of the pit and goes to Egypt and winds up, we've seen in this nonlinear Tarantino-like storytelling motif that he winds up becoming the Pharaoh or the leader of Egypt. So this guy ritually or ceremonially or symbolically dies, sits in the underground for 3 days and rises to become a ruler, right? And also at the very beginning, the dream business that he had, where he's talking about the sun and the moon are all bowing down to him. So this Friday we have a guest on the show, Robert Anthony. He's been on the show before, and he returns, and we talk actually a lot. We talk at length about the solar lunar connection in the occult stories of the Bible. I didn't bring this story up specifically, but I mean, it's right here. We're looking right at it, right? The sun and the moon bowing, this guy going underground for 3 days and 3 nights and coming out and becoming a ruler. Anyhow, if you're interested in this sort of astro-theological take on this stuff, this story, I mean, it's everywhere. Like, even the story Cain and Abel is the solar lunar business. The moon chases the sun around, the sun chases the moon around, and the eclipse happens. And I mean, it's like right there. But I hope you guys check out the interview episode on Friday. It's a good one. I really enjoyed it. And with that being said, let's wrap this sucker up, huh? Wanted to remind everybody about the masks and the t-shirts, from the Lesser Key of Solomon, the Pentagram of Solomon, and the Disc of Solomon. Atlantis Part 2 is available at Patreon and Subscribestar for a fellow craft episode. Keep your eye out for Pentecost Sermon and Magician Sticker May. Every Patreon supporter that we gain at the $5 tier or $10 tier, we get a free sticker of the Magician card of the tarot card deck that I'm supporting.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Send an email or visit us on social media to let us know what you think about this topic. And please remember to leave a 5-star rate and review.
Hey, did you learn something? Did you laugh? Supporting me is a way for you to be a part of the Abercast and ensure its growth and sustainability. It also means I can create a normal schedule for shows and bonus shows, as well as the exclusive Fellowcraft episodes. By supporting the show, you are not only a listener, but you are a part of the show. You supporting the show gives me a way to offer fun rewards as a thank you for showing your appreciation and support for our projects. Do you have an idea for a reward that you don't see? Let me know. My supporters are my partners. I currently pay for you to listen to the Abercast. Not only do I pay the hosting bills out of my own pocket, I volunteer my time and talent to each and every episode of the Abercast. The price of books, the time and resources of reading and researching, the massive amounts of gin and tonic needed, the equipment it takes to record the shows, the time and resources it takes to create the bonus material, and the cost to maintain the internet presence. Is it worth your support? I don't know. I'm proud of the Abercast, and I feel like I'm improving all the time. In addition to creating the show that you dig and that you are excited about, I also have a full-time commitment and other obligations. So why financial support? All of the supporters help me focus my time on the quality and development of the podcast. And what if you can't afford, $1 or $3 or $10 or whatever a month? Believe me, I get that. There are many degrees of support, but if you can't support the show financially, please consider leaving a 5-star rate and review on your preferred podcast app. And don't forget that you could sign into the mailing list and still unlock a lot of bonus content. Thank you. I cannot put into words how much it means to me that you listen to the show each time I post a new episode. Your feedback, support, and love of the stories that we talk about here is what keeps me going.